Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of December 16th. I'm Ryan Miller, and he is 2019's own favorite fiver,
Hey.
Matt Amberg.
Five. That might have been 6.
That's too many.
That's how excited I am. I can't even count how many faves that I did.
You are, well, I hope there's 5. You are excited for this, the end of the year show for Book Club for Movies, where we choose 5. I say like we've done it so many times before. This is only the second one we've done.
But we've been doing the Fave 5 for video games for a decade now, it seems
Very
like.
true. Yes, that's absolutely true. And we're going to do it for Book Club for Movies, where usually we watch one movie a week and talk about it here on the show. We're going to choose 5 of those movies that we've done. Again, only the ones we've done an entire show on. So there were lots of, if you've talked about it during the rest of the show, or just, hey, by the way, I watched this, or if we were throwing movies back and forth, TV volleyball, none of it. None of that counts.
None of it. It's garbage.
These are only the movies we've done entire shows on. And I've got the list right here, actually, if you want it. Should we start with that?
Let's go ahead and dish the list. Dish the list.
The list.
I just read The Irishman as the very top thing, and so that's what happened.
Oh, if you got the list, you do it then.
Again, here we go. All right.
Okay.
This is in no particular order. I kind of just grabbed it from the list that's been tweeted out, so go ahead and check that out on the Book Club for Movies
Yes.
Twitter.
And let us know yours.
Yeah.
In that tweet, I asked what everybody else's top 5s were from the list, and I got a response. So we'll
I love
maybe
it.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
exciting. Okay,
Go for it.
here's our list. In no particular order. Probably going to be relatively... Hey, you know what? This is stupid.
It's, chronological in reverse, because I just went through and listed it. Yeah.
This is in no particular order because I didn't grab it necessarily that way. Here are the films we watched this year. Before Sunrise, The Endless, Hannah, Isle of Dogs, Get Out, Brick, Master and Commander, The End of the Tour, Shazam! Us, Triple Frontier, Bandersnatch!
It's Bandersnatch.
Oh,
That was the
Bandersnatch. Stay tuned. Primer, Upstream Color, Sunshine, Flash Gordon, A Ghost Story, The Infinity Saga, Infinity War and Endgame, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, The Mist, The Fog, The Dog Soldiers, The Ravenous. None of those have the Dog Soldiers, Ravenous, Alita Battle Angel, Knives Out, and The Irishman.
So a solid list.
I think it's a great list, honestly.
Wonderful list.
There's literally only... there are only 2 movies on this entire list that I immediately discounted in terms of these are just not going to be on in any chance.
Oh, really?
They're not making my... Yeah, absolutely not.
I went a little quicker.
Movies I like, but those 2 were like... they were immediately gone. And that was...
Yeah, tell me, actually. I'm curious.
Stay Tuned. Totally not a chance. Never going to be on there. And Triple Frontier. Not a chance.
Okay.
Flash Gordon.
Interesting combo there.
Flash Gordon, also not a chance. There was Bandersnatch, same thing. And I fully admit this is going to surprise everybody. Shazam is definitely not going to be on that list. I love Shazam, but that's not on this list. Especially because, keeping in mind, one of the things that for me that I'm using as my own personal barometer is the quality of the show behind the movie too.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about that last year too.
And Shazam, for as much as I love that show, we had a ton of fun doing it. It was in person. It was that show was for all intents and purposes just a big fanboy show for me. That movie was never going to get a fair shake in terms of what's bad about it.
That's smart. I feel like you're saying you can't trust yourself, so you're disqualifying it.
I am. That's 100% it. I don't trust it.
That's smart. No, I like that. I appreciate that.
So, the rest of it, I got my fave 5, and my fave 5 out of that group really fast. I mean, we're talking. I went the top 3. I had within. As soon as I saw the title on the list, I was like, that's in. And
so you're more ordered than the video game show?
No, not at all.
These are still just 5 in no particular order.
They were just the ones that I immediately knew that's on my list for sure.
Okay, me having forgot that's how we did it before, again, numbered mine from top to bottom.
I do have a number 1, though. There is an absolute winner. And actually, you know what? To be fair, I think that this is... numbered in the order that I would do it, but number 1 is for sure number 1.
Okay. All right. I didn't get through the beginning as quick as you. Sorry, I didn't get to my top 5 as quick as you. There were some that I cut immediately like you did. I didn't mark what those were, but I can tell you what hung around for the longest time.
Yeah. Tell me the ones that hung around that aren't on your list.
So these hung around for a bit. Triple Frontier, Bandersnatch, and The Irishman, which...
Fair enough.
No offense to The Irishman. Like, and we've done that movie most recently. I still have a sneaking feeling that I'm failing that movie more than it's failing me. You know, like...
I don't know, man.
Well, in no list should The Irishman, I feel like, be keeping company with Triple Frontier and Bandersnatch. Movies that I like, for sure, for wildly different reasons. But The Irishman is... we talked about this. It's cinema, Matt.
Cinema.
And I say that sarcastically, but seriously. I know there's more there than I'm giving it credit for, which seems ridiculous to say. And it's also something I actually had a short discussion with Jonathan Blade on Twitter about this, because I do continue to think about it and hear about it and talk about it, even though it's been, a week or two now. So there's obviously, this is the dumbest thing anybody could say, is that there's obviously something there in that Scorsese film.
So somebody pointed out, they verbalized something for me where that movie fails me, and it's
okay.
it is. I don't know, man. This is one of those, like, it's a weird nitpick, but I also think that it's a totally valid nitpick, especially because the film is so heavily predicated upon the CGI de-aging thing. Okay. And the fact is that CGI de-aging can work fine with actors that still have lots of mobility to be young. And there was so many moments throughout that movie where at no point at the youngest age De Niro is supposed to be, they're calling him a kid, he still looked 50. Like, oh yeah. And I'm sorry, that's a huge problem for me, because it just at no point is he a kid. And that you're supposed to acknowledge that he's a kid and accept that he's supposed to be like in his late 20s, early 30s, and he's
whatever it is, yeah.
And then it is exacerbated so much by that one scene with where we finally, like, where we get the early on, where he goes and beats the crap out of the guy.
Oh man, you're reading my mind. Yeah.
Bad. It is like that was. I don't like the term cringe. I don't like using it. I don't typically think things are cringy. That was cringy as hell. That was so
well, this is part of the reason when we started talking about the de-aging, and I liked it and you didn't as much, and I think we found a middle ground. But that's why I asked if you just meant the actual face or when the camera pulled out, like the movements. Because that scene specifically, it's when he takes Peggy and he goes and beats a store owner up that, I forget,
slapped her,
pushed her or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, De Niro looks like an old, like it doesn't even look like the kicks land half.
No,
it looks really bad. It does look really bad. It looks like an old dude trying to act like a young dude.
And on top of that, the Foley for it was terrible because it was that standard Scorsese, these are real big bad hits. Looked terrible.
I missed that.
Terrible.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's only so much you can do there. I remember hearing interviews with, we're going off on a tangent, but again, this is the last movie we did with The Irishman, so this is some of that discussion. The last movie I saw interviews with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen for, I think it was Days of Future Past, because they did a lot of de-aging there, but they also talked about having to act spry, like, because there are some shots where they're walking up to a building and whatnot. So in those, I thought they pulled off.
Yeah.
So in any event, it's part of the whole. Yes.
So here's my whinge about that scene too, and for the well, but you know, give them this, give them that. You know, there's not much you can do with the scene. Oh no, there's plenty you can do with the scene. And what bugs the hell out of me is that this is one of those things where Scorsese should have been smart enough to either not pull out that way, do closer shots of actual kicks and stuff, or freaking get a stunt double. Like, you don't have to show his face. You don't have to see De Niro to know that it's him.
For that one shot at least. Yeah,
like,
right.
Show him, because almost the rest of the movie, it's not as relevant. He doesn't necessarily, like, there's not as much physicality to what he's doing. But even there are moments like some of the there's one or two of the assassinations Like, again, for how old you're supposed to be, I just don't buy you doing it, like you killing the guy that way. And maybe it's just because I'm so stuck on how Scorsese has done stuff in the past. But even those moments where De Niro is supposed to be quick, fast, I'm going to shoot the guy, he still looks old and he looks weak. That's all. I don't know.
No, I think that's honestly endemic to this movie. I think there is a lot that Scorsese expects you to forgive. We talked about all the small little continuity errors. We talked about De Niro in the rest home. He looks like he's reading cue cards. Like, none of those really go away from me. I just got the feeling that Scorsese was saying, forgive this for a greater good. And it's a good movie. It's better than all of these bad things we're talking about.
Sure,
in fact, in speaking with Jonathan Blade, we got to talking more about De Niro's character. And something I had in my notes but didn't get to mention or didn't come up for whatever reason is that De Niro, for better or worse, does paint a full picture of this character. And it's this character whose agency is questionable. Like he's supposed to be this big bad, this guy that orchestrated how many things, this hitman, but he only ever does stuff he's told to do. Like, he's this consummate number two, is how I put it in the discussion.
That's perfect.
Where even to the very end, he's emulating Hoffa and how he left the door open. Like, that's the final shot, And I know this goes somewhere larger. Again, I feel like there's a lot that is being left unsaid with this movie, but it was an effective portrayal, and it begs all of these questions about men in his position, friends, and even just meta narratively, because does this happen because this character is a fabrication? We talked about the validity of the work that it's based on as is, and it's just, there's a ton more there that we don't need to talk about because it's not on any of our lists. Where were we? What are we doing?
I don't know. You went off on The Irishman, and I followed.
Did we? You're right, The Irishman. Go listen to last week's show.
Ignore everything you've just heard for the past 10 minutes.
I'll cut that down.
Okay, ignore everything you've heard for the last 5 minutes.
So, that's where we were at. That's right. I was talking about the movies that hung around for the longest time.
Yes.
The Irishman being one of those. Also, what happened is after I cut The Irishman, there were others that were still on the list that I was like, well, if The Irishman's not going to make it, it's funny how much of this is revolving around The Irishman. If The Irishman's not going to make it, I can't in all good conscience keep these movies, is how I put it. And
all right.
I know it's dumb, and this is always arbitrary anyways, but there is this specter of responsibility that goes, it's the curse of film school on the one hand, and it's everything else on the other, essentially. It's my favorite 5 in any event, so however I'm going to manifest my own character flaws is up to me, I think is the important part.
Sure.
Alita Battle Angel had to go. Flash Gordon had to go. Again, these were still on the list, but I'm like, well, I can't, if The Irishman's not going to be it. And then basically I'm at my top 10. So it took me under 10 minutes to get a top 10. Still not that quick.
That's
Sounds
not
like
bad.
You went a little bit quicker. Yeah. And I'm not going to go through everything else I cut. The only other honorable mention I have to give, and I'll give you the thought process, is Avengers Infinity War Endgame.
Sure.
You let me do 2 whole shows on it. I stand by everything I said. I think Endgame is an achievement, a triumph, just a singular entity in the realm of filmmaking. But I guess the question I kept coming back to is what is it without all of the other movies?
Oh, yeah. No, those 2 movies don't work without the 20 other films that came before them.
I think they are good films.
Yes.
And there's all sorts of thought out there you can go into about, what movies have become with them being standalone, or, the question of how much a movie stands, especially how much a Marvel movie stands on its own, has become huge over the years.
Sure.
Like, can you watch these and have any fun with them, having not seen the 20 movies that came before? I think you can.
Definitely you can.
I think if I was judging them solely on that they definitely wouldn't be on my favorite 5. But it's, it's like, it's getting bad if I'm comparing anything to the Academy Awards, but it's like giving Return of the King the Academy Award or whatever it was. That award was for the franchise, essentially.
Definitely.
The achievement that that trilogy was, and I think that's fine. And again, Endgame and Infinity War are amazing. Just the achievement there is unparalleled, but it's not going to be on my favorite 5. And I think the more I talk about it, the harder that gets, so we can
Okay.
move on.
Fair enough.
So I'm excluding the Avengers movies. We did the shows on them. You can go back and listen to all that for sure. They have a place within the pantheon of film. And at this point, I'm at 7 movies, and the 2 hardest cuts by far are going to bring us to number 5. I had to. End of the Tour, which I'm not going to be surprised if it does end up on your list somewhere. And this one super hurt, but I just had to know. I had to know its place in the world. I had to cut Hannah. And I know that made it nowhere near your list. That was probably on your first round of easy cuts,
right? That was
right?
an easy cut for me, for sure.
I had to. It's all love to Hannah. I really do love that film. And I do think it reaches a degree of having its cake and eating it too, but not enough that I could put it over the ones that did make my favorite 5. So
you want to know what the hardest movie, the one that actually did hurt to cut? It was the one the one that sat at 6 for the longest time. Was Before Sunrise.
Oh,
which wouldn't surprise me if that's actually on your list.
Man, I always love seeing how, without fail, you include the ones that I cut and I include the ones that you cut, and our list is a perfect whole essentially by the end of the day.
Here's my favorite part. All right, here's my number 5. I'm ready because this is just too perfect. My number 5 favorite of the year. I loved this movie so much. I'm pretty sure I doted on it while we talked about it and how much I enjoyed it, and definitely not on your list. In fact, you specifically said, yeah, this was right away.
I thought you were going to say End of the Tour, actually. That's fine. Okay.
Alita, Battle Angel.
Oh, nice. No, I'm so happy one of us did it.
I love that movie so much. I loved it. And I was telling Beth about this last night. I was reading the list, and I told, like, she was there when I went, oh, this and this, bam, bam, bam. And she went, you know what? I'm kind of annoyed because I came home and you were already watching that movie, and I really wanted to start watching it. And I was like, I couldn't wait. It was like the day we were recording. I had to watch it.
You're lucky. I would watch it again, is what you said.
I did. I told her, I was like, oh, I'll watch that again. Every one of the films on this list, I will absolutely watch again if I haven't already watched multiple times. But Alita, man, the effects on that flick, I loved. I thought it looked great. Rose Salazar, fantastic as Alita.
Yeah, and I'm glad you sent me that clip.
So
that
cool.
was awesome.
So cool to see the little behind the scenes of her wearing the mocap stuff, and then seeing the split screen in what showed up and what they got for film, and it looks amazing. Like, everything about that movie got better after seeing the behind the scenes and how they shot some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
yep.
Fun story. Really like the characters. The cast was fantastic. It was that world is a world that felt lived in, that I wanted to be more invested in and more engaged in. I want to know more,
learn more about. Yeah.
So that was a surprisingly easy pick for me. Was Alita Battle Angel.
Man, and here I am cutting it because I cut The Irishman. What a loser.
So what's your number 5, Mr. Irishman?
My number 5, and I should mention, actually, I did tweet this out, and I did get a response from actual film school friend at Lights and Colors, who I'll say tweeted back within a minute. So I was at equal parts jealous at the speed of which he found a top 5 from that list, and attempted just to use it as my own. But he came up with Knives Out, End of the Tour, Primer, Master and Commander, and The Irishman. Master and Commander didn't make it anywhere. That was one of my first round easy cuts, by the way.
That was a pretty easy cut for me, even though I actually really enjoyed it. That was just not.
Yeah. No. Yeah. The Irishman, and he gave an honorable mention to Brick. So,
which is another one that was a pretty quick cut for me, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you'll be interested to hear my number 5 was Brick, and over Knives Out. Like,
Knives Out was not close. Knives Out was out right away.
Again,
yeah. I liked the movie.
Oh, yes. We love all these
But
movies.
this, going back to the discussion, the content of the show, the quality of all that, and how I felt in general, it was just not one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I do this thing, obviously, and I talked about this if you listen to our favorite 5 video games of the year, where I pit movies against each other. I don't think I was ever going to put Brick and Knives Out on the top 5, so it became this thing where, well, which one would I put if I could? And I asked the question at the end of that show if you thought Knives Out was tighter than Brick, because I think story is a huge part of both of those films, and we both agreed that Brick. So I am glad that Rian Johnson got a lot of money to make an expensive looking type Brick.
Yeah.
But I like the story, and I actually like, whether it was budget constraints or not, I like the high school rapper. Like, that's
The
such
rapper is amazing.
It's amazing. Like, that movie Brick is just something you never thought you would see, that works on every level. If it was reskinned and done as an actual noir, it would be a really good one of those regardless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it's just really well done all the way around. So that made my 5 instead of Knives Out.
Reasonable.
I'm curious why it was such an easy cut for you, actually.
In the grand scheme of the films that we watched, that a great movie. Love that movie. I have no complaints about that movie. I thought that show was really good. There are just other movies that I felt we had that were more impactful to me, that I liked for a variety of reasons, in a different way, more, and something that I would rather say, hey, I think a lot of people out that have listened to our show, just in general, especially now with Rian Johnson in general, have seen, heard, and know about Brick. Some of the other movies that I have here, 2 of them in particular, people did not know. And I thought they were more important films to me.
Okay. All right. You're definitely weighting yours, and I should have remembered this from last year, based on the conversation that we've had. I think I went strictly with, movie quality, but also it's a personal list, so
yeah.
personal preference. I don't. We'll continue the discussion about the discussion when we get closer to our number 1. Let's say.
I'm sure we will. But for my next film, number 4 here, it is absolutely 100% the end of the tour.
Okay.
I honestly, the more I thought about how to explain why this movie mattered, the more I realized that this is one of those few instances of, I actually will plead, go listen to the show and watch the movie. It's just, when people talk about Jesse Eisenberg being like, they can't believe he's an Oscar winner, man, this is a movie where, like, that's Oscar-winning Jesse Eisenberg right there. That's freaking Jason Segel at his absolute best, where an Oscar nod totally would have been worth it for him.
Better than I Love You, Man. Better than How I Met Your Mother.
Nothing is better than I Love You, Man, but which, again, Oscar all the way through.
No, it is my favorite Jason Segel and my favorite Jesse Eisenberg movie.
It's an incredible film, I Love You, Man. I don't remember Jesse Eisenberg in it, but I think it was Paul Rudd.
The end of the tour.
No, I loved it. I love the story. I love learning more about David Foster Wallace. It's a movie that really, I think, for anybody who I feel like people that watch that film will be way more interested in finding out more about Wallace than in any other case that they've ever had in their past.
Oh, absolutely. Even though I haven't made good on that desire, but that did come to mind because when I cut it, I was like, I think this would have made it if I knew more about David Foster Wallace to begin with. Like, the movie's fantastic. The performances are fantastic. It's totally cool. But it was my first exposure to him at all, as a character, as a writer, as anything. So
yeah, and
I feel like that could have helped.
And I think people finding out more about him as a human being, beyond his authorship, and then getting into the work that he did, I think it's worthwhile. The good time, great film. I had no problem. That was one that was incredibly easy. That was right away was like, yeah, it's on the list. So
cool. Yeah, good.
What you
it was
got?
A hard cut.
Yeah, that would have been a difficult one. Like, if there was, I can see why, because we had a really good show about that, and And
it's an awesome character piece. Like
it is.
The words that they exchange, like with the because it's a character study about a character study for all intents and purposes. So
It's true.
They have a good reason to talk about the character or person of David Foster Wallace because the guy's doing a profile on him. So yeah, they really get to get into it and talk about, you know, what makes a person, what makes that person specifically. So yeah, no, it's
the dialogue in that film was really well written. It was really smart.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
I think it just made my number 5.
Hey!
What was my number 5? I can't even remember at this point.
The Irishman.
Number 3. Are you ready?
The Irishman.
Gosh, dang.
It takes up every space because that's how long the movie is.
A Ghost Story.
A ghost story.
Yeah.
Wow.
What I'll refer to from here on out as The Climber. This was both 5 and then 4 and then 3. And it probably has the power to make 2 or 1.
Sure.
If I gave it enough time.
Sure.
And I think why is because it has so much about it. It is this absolute art film, you know, but at the same time, it's got that moment where the subtitles appear out of nowhere.
God, that's so good.
It's got Rooney Mara eating a pie, which we just talked about recently on our Irishman show.
In real time.
In real time.
Like a whole friggin' pie, man.
And then to have that all land at the end in a way that helped me to understand, because it's a movie about connection with time, but also places. You know, that house, you know, the ghost can't leave that house even after it's torn down. Just tons of beautiful images too. But at the end of the movie to understand, because I was the guy forever that was like, don't say goodbye house. That's stupid. Don't say goodbye to inanimate things. That's like, you know.
Goodbye, moon.
To turn me, to get me to understand at least. I don't know that I'm saying goodbye to houses. If I ever left a house, maybe I would. It's a weird thing to say. I leave houses all the time.
And I don't say goodbye to them generally.
To help me, to get me to understand that is a feat all on its own. To affect me in that way, to change my worldview. That movie did it, and it did it with images. It did it with performances, like Casey Affleck. Both of them, just all those quiet moments where the camera doesn't cut, and you're like, it probably should have at this point. And
I remember the conversation we actually had where we talked about it was the Soderbergh thing.
Oops, I left the camera on.
Oops, I left the camera on, and somehow it came out and it worked. Ha! Steven Soderbergh.
It's used perfectly here, so. I feel like I would say more about it, but it would be more of the same, and there's not much to the movie. It's the quintessential less is more. I've explained the entire movie to you already, and it's still worth the hour and a half.
It's a ghost story.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I got.
So now here comes a query to you. Would you like to do 2 in a row here? Because the next 2 I have go back to the conversation about Rian Johnson and pitting movies together, and they kind of go hand in hand. Or do you want me to?
Oh, so you pitted 2 movies against each other, and they became your 1 and 2 essentially. That's what you're saying.
3 and 2.
3 and 2, whatever numbers.
Yes.
If you would have told me they were important to the show beforehand, I could have been prepared.
It's up to you.
Okay. All right. I'll give you my 2.
Okay.
Because you've already mentioned it.
Okay.
Before Sunrise.
Oh man, good levels too. Love it at number 2. That's what a film. What a flick.
To make a movie that is just talking. The movie is just talking. Okay? It's absolutely just talking. Don't get me wrong, it looks beautiful. I mean, Linklater, obviously, he's no slouch in all of those departments. And the performances, you get nowhere without them also. It's just talking. And it's watchable. I know this is it's maybe the most pretentious number 2 I could have chosen.
I don't know.
But to create something beyond the words spoken with just the words, there's literally nothing like that movie, and probably the movies that follow. I still haven't watched the 2 after it. It's singular. It's unique. There just is not another movie like it. And I'm probably wrong. I've not seen a lot of movies, but I can't think of any.
No, that's Before Sunrise. That trilogy is very unique unto itself, and that film in particular. I mean, it really is. There's not a ton that works in that way, you know, that it is the whole movie is two people talking, two strangers talking and forming a relationship. Like we're watching a movie about strangers forming a budding relationship over the course of 24 hours. And somehow not only does it seem totally realistic and you could absolutely see this happening, you're invested. And like from the moment you see them together, you're like, well, they can't be together because like that's a stupid ending. How is this going to work? Like, what is this? And the way that film puts them together and lets them grow organically, like not only is it the dialogue and the directing and the performances, but this is a movie that is an absolute masterclass in chemistry and why chemistry is so important when it comes to actual believable relationships.
And I feel like with any of those things, like this movie is, and your mileage may vary, obviously, I can see people making the exact argument I'm going to make. If this movie, I feel like any of those elements you just described is 2 microns in either direction, whatever those directions are, it's unbearable.
100
right?
agreed.
Like, it's the worst movie that's ever been made. The biggest failure and like everybody's huge waste of time. Again, I can see people being like, well, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I don't think it is. I think it's this amazing tightrope walk that is compelling from the first to the last. And it's amazing. Yeah, that's not a climber. That was pretty solid at the top of my list for a long time.
There's a, I admit, there's a out of all of the movies that we've watched together and talked about on the show, that may be one of the ones that I'm like happiest and most like proud is a weird word, but proud that you watched it and you fell in love with it in the same way that I did. Like that's one of those, like that movie is just, it was such a, when I saw that for the first time, even as a teenager, I was like, this is different. This is so wonderful and amazing. And I didn't know that. I didn't know this could happen.
Yeah, no, that's like the most precarious movie suggestion you could make, possibly. Like, hey, you got to check this out. It's phenomenal. Other guy watches it. What? Like it's, yeah, in every aspect, it's unique. And that's why it's my number 2.
Don't worry. I'll pick it up from here. So earlier on, you had mentioned that you had put Knives Out and Brick up against each other because
had to. It
sounds like it was a, while you really like it, it was more of a, do I want 2 Rian Johnson movies on my list? Does that feel a little...
Didn't feel right, yeah.
Didn't feel right. I did not have this issue. My issue came down to, I don't know which order to put these in, but they're both directed by the same people.
Wow.
So my numbers 3 and number 2...
I did a oopsie.
You did an oopsie?
I haven't even talked about my number 4 yet.
What was your number 4?
Oh, I haven't talked about it.
Well,
how did this happen? What number was A Ghost Story, did I say?
3.
Okay, so we're still good. I just there are people listening to this right now that are like, what happened to number 4?
Wait, no. Okay, go back to number 4. What was your number 4 then?
My number 4, and I don't know if this is, hopefully this
How did you do this?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've counted to 5 so many times in the past. I guess I thought I was good at it. Okay. You're saying that your top 2 are from the same director. We didn't do the same director all that often. And I while I wouldn't be surprised to find my number 4 also on your list, this was kind of a either or, so I did cut the other one. I chose Primer over Upstream Color.
Fair enough.
Were you going into Primer and Upstream Color for your 1-2?
I you know what? You
both Shane Carruth films.
Both Shane Carruth films. The other one, you know what? It was I'm wrong. You're right. I'm wrong here on this one.
Wait, what?
I forgot that they were directed. I forgot Shane Carruth did Upstream Color. I thought it was somebody
what
else.
A mess.
I totally thought it was somebody else. So it's fine. Everything works out, and nothing is smart. And I know why. I know why I got them. I know why I got it. I know where the crossover went.
We're so
Oh,
good at
I'm an
this.
idiot.
So, is Primer your 1 or 2?
It's neither.
Okay, all right. So it's my number 4. Primer.
I'm dumb.
Why I
I'm
chose it
so
over
dumb.
Upstream? No. This is great. This is great. Why I chose it over Upstream Color? Upstream Color is probably something that's more over my head than it's not, but I kind of had to include that in my decision making. I mean, Primer was over my head too. Maybe that's the problem. Is I've seen Primer now more than I've seen Upstream Color. I just need to watch Upstream Color more.
Which is funny because Upstream Color is my number 3.
Oh, I thought we did. Oh no, that's right. You're 2 and 3. Oh,
Yeah.
That was my question.
Because I
was
screwed
if
up.
Upstream made it into okay.
Yeah, I screwed.
All right.
I screwed this up.
So Primer nowhere on your list. Upstream Color.
Yeah.
You're number 3.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though yours aren't ordered, mine are. Primer being my number 4. Primer is a fantastic feat of filmmaking and editing that is confusing if you don't look stuff up on the internet. This was maybe my 3rd time seeing it either way, and I still had to do that. In fact, part of it was like, you know what? I'm going to understand this completely. I don't freaking care anymore. And it was worth it either way. Maybe the best thing I can say about it is the thing I said after I seen it the first time and not understanding it was that still by the end, it's like you understand it in your head.
But you can't explain it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I just saw something and whoa, that was different and a different take on time travel. And it's like watching a Lynch film, right? You're like, oh, I've got to put this together after the fact. You know, I've got to do some work here. Okay, let's see. You know, you're taking out some paper. And yet that doesn't take away from it type thing.
Right.
You know? So it's a great movie. That is equaled only possibly by Upstream Color. You're number 3. Tell me about that and why I shouldn't have cut it.
No, I actually feel the same way. I think that the movie, by the like, number 1, I think that the plot and that whole story is really fascinating. The whole drug and then the water and
the stuff I understood. You mean
the flower aspect to it? Yeah, I can't think of what the orchids like. That whole thing is super, super fascinating to me. And then the concept behind what the drug does and what it allows people to do with you was super interesting. And I really love the dialogue. And yeah, it's a movie that definitely there was interneting afterwards because it's not, I'm definitely not smart enough, but I loved it, man. I love that discussion that we had on it too. I thought it was really, really interesting because maybe out of all the movies we've done in the past 2 years, that might actually be the most, I would say, arty film that we've done.
Oh yeah, 1000%.
And I think that we both came away with interesting, like we both had an interesting read on it, and it was a really good conversation because neither of us are necessarily art film fanatics, so that stuff can be really interesting to dig into.
Yeah.
And I really like them. And what I can tell you about Upstream Color and why I got why in my head I conflated was because the number 2 movie on my list is directed by Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson, and it's The Endless.
Oh.
So I think maybe you can understand why there was a little bit of a, oh yeah, no, they did that because I was conflating Upstream Color with Spring.
I mean,
they have next to nothing to do with each other, but there was they conflated in my head. I was thinking of Spring, not Upstream Color at the time. It doesn't matter because I like Upstream Color and that's where I wanted it to be.
They're both independent ventures. Like, yeah, they're not near, like, I don't know if I could ever make that mix up, but I see how in the back of your head, especially if you watch them all in the same year, you could be like confused, especially Primer and The Endless, I think would be the more easier confusion.
Well, and it's between, so Upstream Color, The Endless, and Spring have a visual look to them that kind of cross a barrier for me that they match. There's a little bit of and that's part of it. The Endless, though, number 2 on my list, again, I thought it was a great conversation. I freaking begged you to watch that for the longest time. That was was a long one. That was a long one.
This could have been our conversation in 2018, but luckily I put it off.
Thankfully.
For all those months.
I know, and I liked our conversation we had on it. I think that movie does some really, really great, interesting stuff with the plot behind it, in that there's is kind of a cycle to things, and that they've stumbled into a part of their lives where things are stuck in a cycle and death is part of that cycle. And it's a really interesting story watching like how that all kind of comes together, and then how they attack it in terms of the brothers. They're playing brothers. So are they brothers or best friends? They're brothers.
I think they're brothers.
They're brothers. But watching those two play off each other in that environment, knowing that one wants to stay, one wants to go, but they both know something. It was just really well done. I think those two are fantastic, and they're like, I've mentioned this before, but when I see Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson's name under a film, like that's immediately I'm watching it. They've earned that from me with all the work they've done. So
I'm kind of amazed that Primer didn't come up in our discussion of that movie. Now that I'm thinking, in fact, we watched The Endless first, so maybe that's why Primer wasn't necessarily forefront. If we had watched Primer first and then Endless,
it would have come up for sure.
No chance, yeah. Because I mean, it's obviously there are parallels with the whole time stuff, but yeah, even just the look and the independent feel to them. That was an easy cut for me. Yeah. That was first round.
I figured, actually.
I'm not down on the Thing, but yeah, I guess I don't know why it didn't land so much. It's not so much so floofy as a Primer or something like that. Like that's a relatively understandable movie, especially by the end. I feel like they try to unfold everything for you and bring it all back, and they do. Like it's well constructed. Like I wouldn't even complain about any of that. It was just, I guess maybe the performances weren't anything I loved, but also just the entire, I don't know, it's something I can't necessarily put my finger on. In fact, I don't think I put my finger on it in the show.
No, it was a movie that it didn't click for you. It just didn't land for you.
Yeah, it didn't click.
That's cool. This is one that, like I said, I walked away from it and I loved it, and I've watched it multiple times since, and will watch it multiple times in the future.
I might go back to that, actually. That's something I would still try again and be like, all right, let's, and it would probably be better after everything's better after two viewings.
Usually it solidifies my like or dislike of a movie generally.
yeah
But that was my number two. Right. The Endless comes to an end.
Okay. And I'm positive at this point all we have left are one movie each.
We do. And my movie I'm actually gonna break here. I'm gonna jump in. Okay. I want to give you my number one, and I want to give you the number one because it was actually on your list already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, let's go back here. It wasn't, you already cut Sunrise. Oh, did Ghost Story make it?
Ghost Story is number one.
Hey, thank you.
That was that was the easiest for me. Was the minute we actually said we're gonna do Fav Fives the last week. That was the first one in my head.
You're like, oh, okay, you want to do a show about a ghost story. All right,
basically,
let's do it.
Yeah. and then I looked at the list, and I, like I said, it was pretty quick, man. The movies that I chose were really fast, but A Ghost Story was immediate. There was no question. That movie
always at the top.
That movie there was nothing even shook the perch that it sat on. I love that movie, man. I thought everything about that movie was just beautiful, wonderful, perfectly paced. I love that the
such a weird thing to say about it.
It is, but it was like everything. You know that pacing of Rooney Mara eating a pie. It's incredible. But
it was the one.
But it did it all. That movie just I didn't know what to expect going into that movie, and man, coming out of that movie was just what an emotional gut punch to it, like in the right way, like not it just worked. That movie, everything about it works, and all the things that you've already mentioned I loved about it, and I really can't wait to watch it again and show Beth because she hasn't seen it and she wanted to see it, and that's a movie that I think she's gonna love. I think she's gonna love it.
Yeah, let's talk about that when that happens. Bring that up in whatever show we record sometime.
Sure.
If we come back to doing this next year, I don't know.
Who knows? Ha. But what's your number one? Because now we're at The Endless has ended. Now I'm done.
We're at it.
So let's hear about Shazam.
So
how much you loved it.
I said we would return to the discussion about the discussion. That has been figuring into your decision. didn't like. I tried to basically just pit movies against
Yeah.
movies. Obviously, it's not completely divorced from the time we had talking about it, because that also informs a lot of my feelings on the thing. If it were weighted farther in that direction, we would be talking about Shazam right now. You're not wrong. Like, I went to Colorado. I saw it with the biggest Shazam fan I've ever met. Like, it's rubbed off on you. Rubbed off on me the whole time I was there.
Whoa,
And
that's wrong.
Shazam is cool.
Yeah, he is.
I'm way into it. I was way into that movie. I've seen it 3-4 times at this point. Not as much as you probably, but
We're actually probably about the same now.
it's a ton of fun. It's the entire experience was one of the tops, number one experience ever type thing.
Sure, absolutely. But
as a movie, I can say I don't think it competes with anything else on my top 5. So it was something I knew I had to consider, but something I knew wasn't going to make it into this discussion, so to speak.
I am so curious because I think I know what it isn't. So I don't think it's
Okay.
I don't think it's Get Out, and I don't think it's Us. I don't think it's Isle of Dogs. I don't think it's Flash Gordon. I think you already mentioned that. I think that's so weird.
Irishman.
Is it The Irishman?
No.
I was like, yeah, it can't be.
No.
No. I actually, I was gonna say, I think that, I think your number one. Is it The Mist?
We should have mentioned The Mist. The Mist hung around for a bit too. That might have been like round 1.5 worth of cuts. But
So it must be Sunshine then.
that was a first round cut. It was the first movie you said that it's not going to be.
I don't Get Out.
Yeah.
Freaking good movie, man.
It's the perfect, and if you go back and listen to the show, I think it's 55 minutes of me talking and you saying, yeah. So I couldn't shut up about the stupid thing, but it's also kind of this perfect halfway point between preference. Like, it's not a popcorn movie, but it almost wears that skin.
Oh man, it totally, totally, yes.
No pun intended. But then, and I have it in parentheses right next to it. I'm very woke. I know it's the most one of those decisions I could make here, but it's just an amazing movie to watch, even if you don't get or have an argument for or want to engage with the discussion about what's going on underneath. Like, I'm positive I sure haven't minded all that, because it's also not something I could without a lifetime of experience type thing. So yes, it may be a very woke thing to say, but
I think
I don't really understand the reference.
You're 2 years late, so it's not woke anymore.
I just think it's a really, really good movie on like 20 different levels.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So
Agreed. I think that you're a couple years late on the wokeness, so you're fine.
That's how I do things. So
that's a solid fave 5, man. That's a good movie. That's a good ending.
Yeah. So how did you cut Get Out then?
But mostly because
it's not anywhere on your list.
No, because honestly, because I love that movie. Thought it was great. I think it's a significantly better movie than Us by leaps and bounds. Personally.
Yes,
we've had that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was, if you actually look at my list, Alita, End of Tour, Ghost, Upstream Color, The Endless, and A Ghost Story. No horror movies to speak of. They were just different movies. And no, the conversation we had for Get Out was great. It was just, again, one of the things that
conversation. Maybe that's what happened, is we didn't have an actual conversation, so it didn't make your list.
Again, part of it goes back to the movies that I have on my list are less, I think they were lesser seen films that we did that I want more people to see. And they also hit me in that way that I wanted to have that discussion. I think Get Out, absolutely deserves a spot. I think Get Out totally is a fantastic movie. I loved it. But I think also that it has been, personally for me, it's been talked to, it's been done, it's been, people know about it.
I'm not just late to the party on Woke. I'm late to the party on Get Out, period. So yeah.
Well, but now you've gotten in.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
I don't know. What's going to be our first movie of next year? Who knows?
I have no idea. When is going to be our first movie of next year? I feel like traditionally we've taken a couple weeks off. I'm excited because for the literal first time since we've been doing any of these podcasts, I thought ahead of time to take off Christmas week.
Yeah, no, good job. I'm stoked about it.
It takes me 7 years to learn things. Wait. Also, I don't know how long we've been doing this. It hasn't been 7 years. It feels like 7 years.
Be pretty.
Actually, no. It takes me 7 years to learn things. That's just true. I don't know how long we've been doing the show.
Also true. Okay.
Disconnected.
Yeah. No, that works.
So yeah, are we taking time off?
Oh, we're definitely taking time off. Yeah, we won't be back the first of the year. I'm sure it'll be probably a couple weeks in. I mean,
okay,
maybe February. We might start back up February. I don't know.
Wow. I typically let you set the date, so you tell me.
All right. Well,
and us.
Talk to you next October. Book Club for Movies Octoberween is the only thing we're doing ever.
It's just 12 months of weens.
That's all the ween you can handle. Happy Christmas, Merry New Year's, and good Hanukkah. And what else is there? I don't know. I'm Hanukkah.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, happy
everybody.
Happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah. Enjoy your days. Kwanzaa. What else is there? Something else, probably.
Our gift to you is goodbye for the year.
Yay!
So catch up on that backlog.
That's right.
Go watch some movies. I can tell you that when we do come back, I already accidentally have about 5-6 comic book movies that I've watched.
Oh man, I've got 4 movies sitting there. I've got 3 comic book movies waiting in the wings.
So business as usual when we come back at the very least.
That's right.
All right. So how do we end this thing?
Oh, here's how we do it. Bye!